Hey guys, what's up? It's Nate and I'm back with another episode of Paranormal Talk. So today's going to be an informative video. We're going to be focusing on EMF and the devices used to detect it. What is EMF exactly? How do these devices work? Well, I'm going to try my best to explain it to you now, and I hope you enjoy. Let's jump into the video. Alright guys, so before we jump into the technical aspects of the equipment of the video, which for this video particularly I have a K2 and I have a Dr. Gauss, we're going to discuss what EMF actually is. A lot of people in the paranormal community will tell you that EMF stands for electromagnetic field, electronic magnetic field, and they're not technically incorrect. In all actuality though, if you go and look up the definition of EMF, it stands for electromotive force. The electromotive force is what creates the EMF field that our devices are detecting. I'm going to display an image now that's going to show you how electromotive force works. Please feel free to pause it, overlook it, and get a good concept and understanding of how this process works. And then we'll go further into how this affects our devices and how our devices detect it. So now that you've had a chance to overlook that photograph a little bit, I hope you have a better understanding about the concept of EMF and the field that it puts off. So when we go into a location as a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, whatever you want to call yourself, and you're using your devices and they're going off, you're not actually detecting the EMF of anything. You're not detecting the electromotive force. You're detecting the field, the waves that are being put off by the electromotive force contained within an object around you or the natural EMF field itself. Notice I said EMF field. That is what you're detecting. You're not detecting the electromotive force. And this is a very common misconception, and it's just how it was defined by mainstream media back when these ghost hunting shows first came out. If you actually go back and watch the first season of TAPS, they don't refer to it as electromagnetic field. They refer to it as electronic magnetic frequency, which is actually, in a way, once again, correct. There's multiple definitions, and none of them are wrong. Just keep in mind, you're not detecting the EMF. You're not detecting the electromotive force of an object. You're detecting the field that is coming off of the object, which is the electronic magnetic field, electronic magnetic frequency, or the electromagnetic field, whatever you want to call it. And next thing I want to talk about is a little bit of another misconception, that these devices are made to detect in the ELF zone. If you don't know what the ELF zone is extremely low frequency zone. This is typically 3 to 30 hertz. A lot of your devices will not detect in this level. They will tell you that they do, but they don't. Be sure to research your device properly to know what it's doing. The K2 meter, good example. A lot of companies will try to sell you this, telling you that it will detect in the ELF zone, when in all actuality, it will not. And we're going to get into that breakdown later on when I go over the K2 meter. So please keep in mind, overlook your equipment. Know what you're using. And there's multiple devices out there, that will help you do this, guys. You want to go into a location. You want to detect the EMF field that's being put off by the electromotive force, right? Research what you're buying. That it's a very important piece of this puzzle, because you don't want to go out and spend a shit ton of money on a device that you're never going to use or don't know how to properly use. Get the basics. Learn how to use the device first. Each one has the same basic concept, but you have some that are relatively cheap, such as the ELF zone meter. You can buy an ELF zone meter. They run about 12 to 16 bucks depending on where you buy them. Ghost Augustine normally has them, or Ghost Stop keeps them in stock most times. Same thing with the Dr. Gauss. You can normally get 2 of those for, say, 45 bucks plus shipping. And Ghost Augustine or Ghost Stop, once again, typically will keep them in stock. There's no sense in you going out and buying a K2 meter, which is going to cost you 40 something dollars, or a Mel meter, which is pretty pricey, or even more pricey, the tri-field meter. There's no sense in going out and buying any of these if you don't know the basics of how the equipment works, because all you're doing is you're wasting your hard-earned money on something that you don't know how to use and you don't know what it does. So be smart. Research what you're buying. Research what it's used for. There is zero reason for you to go out and spend this money on a device that you don't know how to use. The first device that we're going to go over today, and I actually filmed these segments a few days ago. We're going to go through and splice them together and see how well that works out for us. But we're going to talk about the Dr. Gauss meter and why I like it. It's one of the oldest pieces of equipment that I have. It was a good starter for me, and it's a recommended starter for any team out there that's watching this video that just wants to get their feet on the ground, and start learning the equipment and how to use it. This is a very good meter for that method. They're very rugged. I have accidentally dropped this thing and kicked it across the room while walking through a location, and it still works flawlessly. So let's go into the technical aspects of the Dr. Gauss meter. So this is probably one of my favorite EMF detectors. It's my oldest one. I bought it about 13 years ago. It's been dropped, it's been kicked, and the thing just takes a lick and it keeps on ticking. It still works flawlessly. So you gotta, first things first, turn it on. You got a button over here. Yeah. Turn it on. Hold it down for a second or so, and you'll see it's gonna start registering. And it's about 0.2, 0.3 in this room, which is typical. It's normal for us. So the thing I like about this particular EMF detector, not just the fact that it's one of my oldest, so it's kind of like got a nice place in my heart, you know what I mean, is you can hold down the on-off button, and if you hold that button down, it turns into a background EMF detector. So it's just detecting the background EMF that's floating around. If you leave it unheld, it's the natural EMF mode, which I prefer to leave it in. I find it more accurate, especially for detecting spiritual activity. And the fluctuations are amazing because you go from 0.1, 0.2 up to a 8 and then right back down. And you know you're getting legitimate spikes that shouldn't be there. So you can actually take this meter, hold down the on-off button, it turns into a background EMF detector. So it takes all the EMF floating through this particular room and collects it into one mode. I don't know how accurate this mode is, which is why I don't use it. I leave it on the unheld natural EMF mode. Because if you hold this down, it spikes to a 2. That's pretty high for any location. And I wouldn't trust the readings on this. I mean, I guess it couldn't hurt for documentary purposes to take this mode and walk through the house and see what you can catch and then check it again later on. For just specifically for documentary purposes, though, I prefer to leave it like this. So another good thing about this meter is when it comes in contact with an EMF field, this happens. I'm not holding the button down. You can't see it, but that was spiking up to a 10. So the reason why I say that I like the fact that this emits noise is unlike a K2 meter, which is relied upon by looking at the lights, this particular meter you can set up next to a voice recorder. You can leave a room. If anything comes in contact with it that causes it to jump, you're going to know it when going through your audio recordings, or you might even audibly hear it in another room and have time to run over there and check and see what's going on. So you have a meter sitting there not doing anything for say 20 minutes and all of a sudden it spikes, which for the record, these have a 10-minute shut off. So you're going to have to go back and reset them every 10 minutes or else to automatically shut off the saved battery. But anyways, once you reset it, you leave it. You know, if it's been sitting there for 20 minutes and hasn't spiked or hasn't done anything, and then you get a random spike up to say 8 or 9, and it emits a pretty loud noise. So that could be a very credible piece of evidence there because it's been sitting there for that length of time, didn't do anything, and for one moment it acted out. So another thing I like about this device is it gives you the instructions on how to use it on the back on this nice little sticker. Now, as I said earlier, this device is almost 14 years old, so this sticker's held up pretty well for its age. It tells you here it requires a 9-volt battery. There's 2 methods to using the device. Method 1 is press the button and release it to measure your natural EMF. Method 2 is press and hold the button to measure your background EMF. As I said, Method 1 is going to be the way you want to go. That's your natural EMF, natural fluctuations. Method 2 is good for documentary purposes, basically just walking through and seeing what the background of each room is. So if you see here, it says 0.01 to 1 milligauss. That's a good, normal background EMF range. So the fact that my house is measuring a 2 to 2.5 in certain places, that's not really concerning, but it's something I need to have a look at. So as far as the maintenance and changing the battery on this device, relatively easy. No, I will not lie. This cover right here, the reason why I left it off is it is a pain in the ass to open. You can push it down all you want. You can try and get it to slide. It won't slide. I had to use a flathead screwdriver in here, hence the little nick right there, to force this down. If you hear my son in the background, I'm sorry. He's homesick today, so. But yeah, so I had to pop that off. There's your 9-volt battery. And 9-volt battery, pretty self-explanatory. You pop the thing out, you put the new battery in, you put your cover back on, you start your device up. And that's all for the maintenance of it. They're not all that expensive. I remember when I bought this device, and all those years ago, I think I paid $60 for 2 of them. So that wasn't all that bad. I don't know what they go for now. I haven't honestly looked in a while because I've been messing around with K2 meters and looking into Mel meters and such. I wanted to see the differences in each device. So the next device we're going to look at is going to be a K2. This is just a Dr. Gauss is what it's called. It's a Dr. Gauss meter. And we're going to go into the K2 meter next. The next device that we're going to discuss is the K2 meter. This is the one that most people recognize from ghost hunters and the mainstream media. Very tricky to use if you're not used to it. And I say that because you look at it, it's got the readings there, right? Oh, well, that's easy enough to read. A few things you probably didn't know about the device. Number one, you know when you turn it on, see that flashing there? Do you know what that's doing? That's self-calibrating. So, plus side to this machine self-calibrates itself. Mine actually died several months ago and I couldn't figure out what was going on with it. Turns out there's a 9-volt battery in this baby. And all you gotta do is change out the battery. And I actually made a video that I'm going to splice in now to show you how to change out the battery in the K2. One of these. Get one. So a few things that the websites won't tell you when you purchase these devices. Once it's turned on, hang on. One, don't wave it around. Don't move it extremely quickly. Why? Because if you move it extremely quickly, this light will jump. And when this light jumps, it's giving you a false reading if you're actually performing an investigation. So be very mindful of that. Do not move it extremely quickly. Walk slowly. Number two, they're not rugged. Very easy to break. I have broke one of these myself just by simply dropping it on a concrete floor. So be mindful, hold it nice and tight, make sure that you got a good grip on it. Another thing they will tell you, and I'm referring to my notes here, I'm sorry, is most websites will tell you that this device will operate in the ELF zone, which we discussed the ELF zone earlier. It will not. The typical device range of this is 50 to 60 hertz. So keep that in mind. If you see a website telling you that it operates in the ELF zone, it does not. So please, once again, be mindful of what you're buying. Do your proper research on the actual device. One thing that I do feel is very important to discuss about the K2 meter is a misconception that it's a multi-axis device. It is not a multi-axis device. This is a single-axis device. It doesn't detect anything off the side. Now, could a field swoop around? Yeah, it's possible. But it will only detect what's in front of the device. It is a single-axis device. But Nate, why is that important? I'll explain that now. This is extremely important when you're doing a line of questioning. You turn it on, you got your one green light going, you ask a question, it jumps to red. Once for no, twice for yes, however you do it, right? Something has to be within that one axis to make the device go off. So something has to be right here. It's not a fluctuation, most likely, from the outside or the underneath. It has to be in front of the device. So that is very important because it adds credibility to the device and how it works. Is it specially calibrated, as some will tell you, to detect spirits? No, because how can you specially calibrate a machine to detect something that we know so little about? You can't. However, keep that in mind when you're using this device, that the line of questioning portion is very important with these because it can add credibility to your findings, as it has to be in front of it to detect it because it's not a multi-axis device. So that's what I've got for you guys today. I hope that this video helped inform you about EMF, the EMF field, and the devices that we use to help detect this field. Going forward, as we more aggressively look into the paranormal and we further research it, I feel as though electromagnetic field, whatever you want to call it, will have a major role to play as to whether or not we can prove the existence of a spiritual realm or ghost or whatever you would like to call it. But keep in mind that without researching the devices that you're using, you're doing more harm than good. You could be putting out false evidence that people are just going to rip apart, and then you're going to lose your own credibility. So research what you're using. Guys, Nate signing out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, share. Y'all have a good night.